Everybody's allowed to chime in whenever they can.
Just fight your way in, Jordan.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I chimed in just as much as anyone else.
Did you?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, when your video wasn't breaking up, you might have saw. But...
Oh, here comes the heat. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 196 of Bourbon Pursuit. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny Coleman, and this is the Community Roundtable. That means I don't have any news to talk about because all we talk about is the news on the roundtable. We get some of the latest gossips and the fun cultural topics that we all love to hit on, such as barrel selections. But a little bit of news about us. We recorded a live podcast this week with Corky Taylor of Peerless Distilling Company. Make sure that you don't miss out on our live streams and live recordings because we have another one coming up in May. Make sure you're following us on all our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you're going to be the first to know when we go live. Are you interested in partnering with Bourbon Pursuit? We're the most downloaded whiskey podcast across America. Check out how you can get your brand in front of 1 million bourbon drinkers per year at bourbonpursuit.com and hit the partnership button. Or you can send us an email, team@bourbonpursuit.com. Now with that, you've got Fred Minnick with Above the Char.
I'm Fred Minnick, and this is Above the Char. If you walked into a Louisville bar in the 1980s, you had a very little chance of getting a good Manhattan or Old Fashioned or mint julep. Most of the bartenders were used to just slinging beer and pouring a little whiskey on ice or neat. And then came a young woman named Joy Perini. She came from the Caribbean islands where she served as a bartender at St. Croix and made all sorts of daiquiris and various types of rum drinks and all kinds of banana frozen concoctions that made the island visitors quite happy. Louisville had never seen anybody like Joy Perini. She stood behind the bar and slung mint juleps like nobody here before. She made Manhattans and created special syrups that would complement bourbons, unique to Kentucky. She was so amazing that Esquire called her the bad girl of bourbon. And the reason why, she would tell you off if you ordered a bourbon the wrong way, in her opinion, or if you boasted a little too much about what you thought you knew about bourbon. Because of her accomplishments in life, Joy Perini was named in the Bourbon Hall of Fame, the only female bartender to be inducted into the Bourbon Hall of Fame. When she passed away 2 weeks ago, I thought about my relationship with the 73-year-old. She was quick-witted, would always tell you what she thought, but boy, did she love family. She loved her daughter. She loved my family. And I got to tell you, if you were ever in Joy Perini's presence and she made you a drink, that taste, that moment, it would last a lifetime. Her longtime employer, Dean Corbett, died a few months ago as well. And I like to think that both of them are upstairs right now in the clouds somewhere, sipping on a bourbon. I hope that I can only add to what Dean and Joy did for the Louisville community. And whatever you do in bourbon, whether it's consume it or promote it, I hope we can all live up to the standards that Joy Perini created. And that's this week's Above the Char. Hey, did you know I got a new magazine out? Go check it out. It's on newsstands now. Look for Bourbon Plus in Whole Foods, Kroger, Barnes & Noble, and a lot of other places where magazines are sold. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram @Fred Minnick. Until next week, cheers.
Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof, and the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Play Whiskey Wednesday Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you could win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select two doors at checkout, and if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean, instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order.
Welcome. This is the 31st recording of the Bourbon Community Roundtable. It is another favorite of Bourbon Pursuit because this is the opportunity that not only do we have a variable mix of some of the biggest bloggers and authors in the scene of bourbon here to join us, but we get to talk about recent news, and it's also the opportunity for fans, for people that are in the bourbon community as well, to join and watch this happen live and be a part of the live chat as it goes down. So Kenny, Ryan, and Fred here from Bourbon Pursuit Team. Fellas, how you doing tonight?
Great. I'm trying to count all the.
Well, it's 31 times down. We had to mess up at some point.
I'm trying to count all
ask that question. Why would you hit him with a hardball?
Where's the bunnies?
I was trying to count all the tiles on the bottom of the screen. I'm like, how many people we got going this time?
What matters is the round table is a bourbon family, and I'm here at my cigar family in the lounge, smoking a stogie, and just excited to get this going.
Yeah, I'm in my basement looking at my kids' toys. Pretty pumped. Let's do this. Pre-game.
No, everybody's got a little bit different atmosphere. But this is also the pregame that we're recording this about an hour before the NCAA Men's National Basketball Championship kicks off. For me, I've got to still go with SEC, so I'm pulling for Auburn tonight. Ryan, Fred, what about you all?
Auburn's not playing tonight.
Really?
Are you talking about Friday or Saturday's games? Kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. Virginia.
Well, Auburn should have won.
Versus Texas Tech. Yeah, I'm way
Auburn
off.
should have won, but they fouled.
That's true.
Texas Tech, baby.
Kenny, let's just start over from the top.
Go Big 12.
So I'm gonna go back.
Virginia.
I'm gonna go actually have Virginia. Virginia's who I'm going.
Virginia's had 2 crazy wins, so the probable odds of them winning those games are not probable. So it's probably they're gonna win.
Fuck them. Go Texas Tech. Red Raiders.
There we go. So we got our first 3 in. Let's go ahead and kick it off with our Cal Ripken of the Community Roundtable. Blake, take it away.
Yep. Just continuing the streak all the way through undefeated in the Bourbon Community
Does last time really count? That was
it counts.
I'm not sure
if your face shows up, it counts. If you even throw a pitch in a game, you count it as played. But no, so tonight, I'm Blake from Bourboner. Bourboner.com and Sealbox.com. So for tonight's game, don't really have a dog in the fight.
You never do you? Being a Florida fan?
Okay. Well, back-to-back national championships. It was a decade ago, but let's. I think it'd be interesting to see Virginia win. To go from the first number 1 seed to get knocked off by a 16 seed, and then go back and win the national championship the next year. That's a pretty cool story. Texas Tech, I really just have no connection to, other than I like that Bobby Knight coached there for a few years. But my heart would say Virginia, but I don't think they're going to win. I think Texas Tech actually wins. If we're going to do a spread, I'm going to say Texas Tech by 7. And I'm willing to put
one up this.
Yeah. I got a Bourboner pick on that one if anybody wants to take me up on it.
Oh. Now things really get heated up.
I just said
is that a 5-star pick? Can I put my mortgage down on it?
That's a 5-star guarantee.
Brian, Sipping Corn, go ahead and take it.
All right, thanks. This is Brian with Sipping Corn. Find me at bourbonjustice.com or sippingcorn.com. My team tonight, I'm in protest, so I'm still rooting for the Cats somehow, some way. But since they can't win, since it was robbed from us, I'm going Texas Tech tonight. The improbability that Ryan was talking about of some of those games that Virginia won and just not being able to put points on the board makes me think this is a Texas Tech kind of night.
There we go.
And in honor of one of our topics and one of our guests, I've got a Wild Turkey 1855, the 108.8 proof.
Nice.
And I've got to drink the rest of it because a reminder to people, corks can still break after the initial opening. So the rest of this is going down.
Oh, boy.
Cheers, guys.
Well, somebody's going to sleep really well tonight.
Cheers to a good Tuesday.
Jordan, take it away.
Sure. This is Jordan from breakingbourbon.com, one of the 3 guys on the site. Visit us for the release calendar, in-depth reviews. You can also find us on social, at Breaking Bourbon, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And for the championship game, since Duke's been knocked out, I'm going to stick with ACC and root for Virginia.
All right, and then we've got 2 other guests that are joining us tonight, and they're always familiar faces to the podcast as well. First, I'm going to go with Wade Woodard, who is he's keeps the Tater Library. He's got tatertalk.com. So welcome back to the show.
Hi, good to be here. As you mentioned, I'm a whiskey geek. I have a blog site, tater-talk.com. I am the compliance officer of the Texas Whiskey Association, and we are within the next month launching a Texas Whiskey Trail with 14 distilleries on the Texas Whiskey Trail. Let's see, the game tonight. I one time was in Lubbock, and I had my Aggie sticker on my car, and I went into a restaurant, and I came back outside, and I had 2 slashed tires. So, no, I can't cheer for the Raiders. I guess I'll have to go with Virginia tonight. And because it's turkey, I brought out my Monday evening bottles here. So I'm having a little wild turkey tribute. Yeah. A little nice pour. So cheers.
Just a random Monday pour.
Just happens to be above his computer as we're recording. Whatever. All right. And then David Jennings of Rarebird, welcome back to the show.
Hey, glad you had me on.
Absolutely. And give a plug about, what you do, and that'll kind of lead us into our first topic tonight.
Okay. Well, I have a blog. It's rarebird101.com. It's primarily reviews of wild turkey whiskeys. I have some articles from time to time. There's some resources there with a timeline and bottle codes and this kind of thing. And more recently, I just finished a first draft of a wild turkey book, which I don't know if you want me getting into that or not right now. But anyway, I'm just glad to be on. As far as I'm just not into sports as much as you guys. So in my house, I'm rooting for wild turkey. It wins every night. So champion.
I was about to say is there something in your life that doesn't revolve around wild turkey? Like at some point, is your wife or your kids are just like, God, will you just quit it just for a minute?
I get it a little bit, but I try to keep it. I try to keep it in check. So anyway, it's all fun and it's my passion. I mean, I really enjoy it. So it's hard. If you don't love something, you're not going to do it every day. But when you're really passionate about something, it just happens on its own. So that's my life on a weekly basis.
And David, I got to tell you, when you reached out to me to read your manuscript, I was really honored, and to see where you're going with it is fascinating. And starting a Kickstarter campaign, that is one of the riskiest things you can do as an author, to go out there and do that, because you're putting yourself out there. Everyone's going to see what the donations are. So Take us through that process. Why did you choose to go with the Kickstarter route?
Okay, well, you know how difficult it is probably back when you first started to get somebody to pay attention to you and give you some type of publishing deal, or one that's even worth a flip. And I didn't really want to compromise. I'm willing to entertain, publishing offers and that type of thing. But ultimately, I felt like no matter what I did, if I went that route, it was going to take a long time. And you told me, we're looking at maybe February at the earliest, if something worked out, maybe later. And so I felt like this was the year. I wanted to get something out there. This is Jimmy's 65th year coming up in September, on September 10th. And I would love to have a copy of this in his hands by that day. And I thought, I think I have a strong enough fan base to get just enough to make that happen, hire a photographer and get some design done, to have a nice looking book. It's not going to be probably as nice as some of the other hardcover books out there, but it was enough. I thought I could get enough together to make it something worth buying, And I'll be honest with you, setting up the Kickstarter, it wasn't as easy as it was when I set up my Patreon. There was a lot more verification to it, and there was no guarantee that it would be approved. And so I put everything out there and tried to set it up as best I could, and just kind of crossed my fingers that they would sign off on it. They did, and I did the math, and I'm like, okay, I just want to break even, with this. I don't want to, set myself upside down with rewards and this type of thing. So I sat down and did my math. I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to run a successful campaign. And so I did my research, and so I came up with $3,500 is probably enough to get the design, photography, all the stuff together to get something out there where a book could be purchased on an on-demand basis, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Fred. But like with Amazon, you can publish a book on demand. So you send them PDF files, and they print the book as people buy it. And so I was just trying to cover the cost to get the book there. Okay, and so. It alarmed me to find out, within 24 hours, it was like I had like $2,000 already, and then today I hit goal, 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or something. And, and now I'm at like $4,500 or something, and the bourbon community, y'all are some good folks, all of y'all.
Well, David, I'll tell you that, people don't open up their wallets to turds, they do that to people they like. And you've always come off as a very genuine, very fun person, and you get to know you. It's even more. And then you got that South Carolina accent,
Just lures us all in.
What is Bill Clinton accent?
I'll buy anything he's selling.
Bill when I was sick, yeah. Guys, it's humbling. It really is. And I really appreciate it. And I appreciate, y'all having me on. I'm going to continue with the Kickstarter. It's going on for another 56 days or so. And everything, every penny I get above my goal is just going to go right back into the project, whether I can make a classier book than I originally set out to, or I can do some marketing. I've been thinking about some ads or this type of thing where I could at least try to, I'm not going to be able to compete with the big publishers, but I can maybe hit a target audience better than they can.
No, that's bullshit. You could whip their ass. Go for it.
So let's kind of tease some people here.
I was going to say, with 57 days left, you're on a pace to make $256,500.
Yeah, I don't think that's a lot of wild
looking pretty good.
There. Yeah.
My wife's going to walk in the room if y'all keep talking like that.
So, David, I'll give you just some economics behind books. Like I've been writing books for
more than 10 years now. And my first whiskey book, Whiskey Women, I had like 500 rejections. And, if I had the access to like Kickstarter or had the notion to do that, I probably would have done it. Mm-hmm. But my advance for that was $2,000. Wow. And so
they don't accept typewriter manuscripts.
They actually do. But so you actually stand, for how you're going about this. You probably actually stand to make, legitimate money off of it, from the book sales if you're putting it all back into the book like this.
That's the goal, is just to kind of see if I can, upgrade the product, because I would love to have something in my hands that is comparable to what you would find on a book stand. I'm not cutting any corners with the Amazon print on demand. I mean, it's going to be a full color, photo quality, highest grade paper that they have. It's going to be soft cover, unfortunately, because Amazon print on demand does not do hardcover. But if I continue to raise funds like this, I can have the Amazon print on demand for an option. And then I might be able to go to like BookBaby or Ingram Spark or something and print some hardcover editions. And those might have to be on a limited basis. It just depends, but that's kind of where I would like to go with it. The most important thing to me is that I want something in Jimmy's hands. That's what I want. If I can just tell his story, and of course, there's the Rippy story in there, and there's a lot about Eddie in there. But that is what I really want, because Jimmy is such a legend, and I feel like it's his time to get he's had a lot of accolades. I'm not going to lie, he's had a lot of people give him various honors. But I think there's a story there that a lot of people have not heard yet. And I think that this is the time. This is the year, his 65th anniversary at the distillery. And I really want to make that happen. And I want to make it happen this year. And it looks like it's going to happen now, thanks to everybody and my Patreon supporters and everybody that's donated on Kickstarter, people that have tweeted, retweeted, done stories on Instagram, Facebook posts, emails, word of mouth, all this stuff. It really helps. And I really appreciate it. And I can't say thank you enough. I really can't.
Well, you still got more time to go here. You hit a goal within 3 days, which is fantastic. You still got 50 some odd more days to go here. So I kind of want to let you give, sort of one last plug to people that are sort of on the edge or like maybe thinking, oh, well, he's already got his funding. Like, why should I even bother to promote it or back it still? But give some ideas of why people should still back it because of the stories and some of the content that you're going to be delivering inside of there as well.
Okay, great. Well, again, I want to take any extra funds raised and increase the quality of the product and promote the product. And the purpose of promoting the product is to make sure that the story of the Rippies and the Russells and of Wild Turkey Distillery in the Lawrenceburg area is put out there. And I think, like I said, it's a story that needs to be told, and it's the right time with Jimmy's anniversary. And then we had the 101 anniversary last year with Jimmy and Eddie's combined service. And so that is the most important thing to me. If it stays a self-published thing where it's promoted on my blog or my Twitter feed or my Instagram, it will reach people. It just won't reach as many people. And so I need to make sure I can raise enough to get it to the right places. Like Bourbon Plus or something, like an ad in Bourbon Plus would be a really cool thing. And so that's my goal. So I just have to raise enough money to do that. And I think that, there's content there that you will enjoy. And there's a whole appreciation section too. It's not just history. So if like history is not your thing, if you're like, just not really, there's going to be a lot of reviews in there, tasting notes, my impression on different expressions. And I'm doing a lot of photography. I'm paying for a lot of photography. So the book is going to have a ton of bottle porn in it. It's going to have a lot of like cocktail porn. And it's just going to be just loaded with pictures.
Excited. Just loaded with just good porn at the end of the day. And
I've got a good photographer, so it's not my stuff.
Did you hire Vivid Entertainment?
Whiskey Advocate?
Wait, I don't mind hitting up Whiskey Advocate either, but they're not on the show tonight. Bourbon Plus is, so I'm going to talk about Bourbon Plus.
Know your audience, and
you talk about.
Fred really likes porn, so he's.
Fred's changing the subject back to that.
And I'd like to get him in the VC. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I haven't really talked to Campari too much, other than and I did arrange some. Well, at least I started the process of arranging to have the photographer come in and be able to take photographs and make sure that there's no questions there. But it would be nice to get them in the visitor center. I think it'll probably happen in time, maybe after it's done and somebody has something to look at. I'm doing a very limited run this week. I sent a local printer the book without pictures to have just like a mock-up made. So it'll be in the 5.5 by 8 by 5 or whatever, kind of book format, digest format. And I'm going to send those out to a few people to do some editing and some review.
What's your targeted date for release, and how can your fellow panelists here help you?
Okay, I would like to have it completed in time to give it to Jimmy. So that would be September 10th. I'd have to have it in his hands. So September, to at least have a run of the book done by a local printer. So it would be exactly like what would be on Amazon, but I can work with my local printer and have that rushed and done quick. So I could do that, have it FedEx. So, I guess September 1st at the absolute latest would be, my deadline there. But out to the world, I put on there December because I didn't want to kind of overextend myself or make promises I couldn't keep, because I don't know what the turnaround time is with Amazon and these things. I haven't got into that, much research on that side because I'm more focused on just getting the thing done. But I put December, but I'm guessing, it'd be more like October, November, sometime like that, where it'll get there before the holidays. That would probably be the best thing to do, because it would make a nice Christmas present, I think.
You definitely want to time it with that. I definitely learned that.
I'm going to try.
The stocking stuffers, they start accumulating.
Yeah. I'll request that instead of the 50 bourbon stones I have.
Yeah, exactly.
I never imagine how much. I mean, you don't think about these things like indexing, like Fred, someone does your indexing for you,
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to do that. And I started messing with Microsoft Word, and I loathe Microsoft Word. I mean, it's got a lot of features, but it's just, it sucks the creativity out of you.
Dude, don't do indexing. I'll connect you with someone who will do it for me.
He's got a great typewriter. That's exactly right.
I was going to say, we're getting out of the bounds of even what I even know to talk about.
Well, thank you, Fred. I mean, seriously, because I played with it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to kill myself doing this. It's just not, I want to create, I want to write. I didn't do a review this week because I was so focused on getting all this stuff together. And I love writing reviews. So it really hurt, to have to take that hit this week. So if you've got someone that can do that, that would be awesome. Thank you.
You two talk offline about that. Let's get back to bourbon.
Nerd stuff. I'm sorry.
Come on, guys. Let's put it back on the rails here. So I want to say, David, thank you again for coming on and kind of giving us a little insight about your book. For anybody that's wanting to help back his Kickstarter, and with the Kickstarter, you get an actual copy of the book too, so you can get that link in the show notes of the podcast as well. But I kind of want to move it on to the next subject, and this is where it kind of all happened in some sort of Twitter spiral. Fred had tweeted about cask finished bourbon jumping the shark. Wade had a tweet about the TTB telling him that you could add flavor and color and still call it a bourbon. And my head was about to explode. And I said, you know what? Let's just have both of these guys come on and we'll just put it out there and kind of see whose kind of feathers we can ruffle if we're kind of tailing off the wild turkey thing there. So Wade, I kind of want to toss it over to you to kind of talk about where this conversation spiraled out of.
Well, if you have a bourbon or a straight bourbon whiskey and you put it in a secondary cask, it becomes class type 641 whiskey specialties. It's no longer class type 101 or 141, which is bourbon or straight bourbon. And the TTB has a chart that what products by class type can have flavorings added to them. And when you become a whiskey specialty, you're also allowed to add up to 2.5% harmless color, flavoring, and blending materials into a product. So I think that's what Fred was talking about somewhat, is that you can add these flavorings into secondary cask finished products and you don't have to disclose the fact. And then we had a major producer just came out with a bourbon that had been finished partially in wine cask, partially in sherry cask. And they acted like they reinvented bourbon, and they were calling the product directly on the bottle. They do have that, what was done to it. bourbon, finished and partially finished. But
wait, people like us because we're transparent. Talk about the product you're talking about.
Okay, Jim Beam Legend. So if you go on Twitter and type in Legend, every single post you'll see me posting the actual cola saying, "No, it's not bourbon. It's whiskey specialties." On the cola label approval.
And this is something you've been on for a long time. I've been a lot more kind of just generally. I like the category because I liked a lot of taste of them, but I've never really liked the fact that bourbon and straight bourbon are on these labels. And this year at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, I think a lot of people know I'm a judge there, and I had the special barrel finish category on my panel, and we're tasting these. I mean, and it was like one was like over sherried, one was over ported, one was like 3 different wine cask finishes, and that none of them had any note whatsoever of bourbon. And that was a moment for me that, where I realized that we're so far removed away from these things tasting like bourbon as a whole that bourbon should not even be on the label for a lot of these special barrel finishes. And when we create like a distilled spirit specialty or a whiskey specialty that allows them to do a lot of the things that they want to manipulate it, to remove it from the actual flavor profile of the original spirit, I don't think bourbon should be on that label. You're starting to see a lot of these independent bottlers, a lot of these craft distillers try to separate themselves in the market. So instead of improving distillate, or instead of having a good quality bourbon to begin with, they're trying to what they do in rum, which is add things to compensate for the lack of quality in the original spirit. And I got to tell you, it has to have people like Booker Noe and Parker Beam rolling in their grave, because this is the sort of thing that American distillers fought against in the late 1800s, again in the mid 1900s. Every time there's ever been an effort to mess with bourbon, distillers have rose up and fought against it. And today it's the exact opposite. You're seeing the larger distillers, push for more of these allowances within the federal government, and it bothers me.
But I'm going to kind of take a different side of that, because we talk to people all the time. Everybody that does all the barrel strength finishes. You're talking the Angel's Envy, the Joseph Magnuses of the world, everything like that, and they look at it as this is a new territory. This is a new angle. This is how bourbon is going to go to the next level, because there's new realms of experimentation.
That's how whiskey is going to go to the next level, in their opinion. But it's not bourbon.
Yeah.
We had the Taft Act back 110 years ago in 1909 that basically said we couldn't have these adulterated spirits. And now we're getting back to, let's add this stuff to bourbon again. So it's kind of
I know what you're saying. I know what you guys are saying when you support the category from a flavor perspective is very good. It's very exciting. But, at some point we have to protect bourbon. And if we do not, then suddenly there's going to be an allowance of coloring and flavoring to bourbon. And we have to protect that. And that's all this is about. That's all Wade's talking about. That's all I'm talking about. I love the flavor of the Angels, a lot of the Angel's Envy products. I love the flavor of the Magnus products. I'm just coming to a point where, there are people in that category who are taking advantage of it, straight up taking advantage of it and adding flavor packets to it, saying, oh, well, I got a little bit of this is a port barrel finish. I just happen to have an extra bottle of port. Let me just drop that in there. So that is what people who are getting flanked by those who are trying to compensate for shitty quality distillate. And that's all it is.
Playing just devil's advocate, not disagreeing, but just playing devil's advocate. So I guess more for Wade and Fred. So if they come up with a new category called bourbon whatever that defines the rules and regulations around how you can finish a bourbon, would that be something you're open to or no?
I would prefer not to use the word bourbon. Call it whiskey. Call it American whiskey or call it some new name.
Well,
but I'm like Fred. It should be protected. Bourbon.
Yeah, you gotta
taste like bourbon.
I think what you have is them just not following the laws, because I don't have a problem, and it sounds like y'all do, but personally, I don't have a problem if they call it Kentucky bourbon finished in whatever barrels. But I just pulled this bottle and it says a truly unique bourbon. That's not abiding by the TTB standards. And now on the bottom, it says Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And then a line below it, partially finished in wine and sherry cask. So with that wording, I would have a problem with it. But I think it's, for me, I don't have an issue with it saying, bourbon finished in whatever cask, because that's what it is. Maybe
I'm
you put that
I'm
on
with you there, Blake, pretending that they always do that. But if they start marketing efforts where they're just calling it bourbon and leaving off what was done to it, it confuses the lines. And that's what Jim Beam is doing with this product. But interesting, I contacted the TTB specifically about this Jim Beam Legend product. And as the compliance officer of Texas, because I have 14 distillers that look to me to say, what can we do on labels? What's allowed?
Wait, America looks to you, not just
the nation is.
Well, I'm really responsible for these 14. I want to make sure that the products they're putting out are fully compliant with all the laws. And some of them are making some of these products. And so I sent the TTB a direct question, is this Jim Beam label fully compliant with the TTB laws? And they basically came back and said this label is compliant. So the TTB doesn't seem to have any problem with Jim Beam calling this product a unique bourbon.
Well, I don't think the government. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, I agree with Blake on the bourbon finished in, but my devil's advocate question for Fred is, it's a subjective question to say when a bourbon finished in whatever kind of barrel no longer has the attributes of bourbon. So how do you govern that?
I think
it's just a bright line. No finish. If it's finished, you can't call it bourbon.
I'm not opposed to finishes, and I'm not even really opposed to having bourbon necessarily on the label. But when it's the main word on the label versus an amplified word? I think that is really where we're getting it. Here's the thing with whiskey distillers, really human nature is you give someone an inch and they're going to take a mile. And that is where we are. I can't remember what the brand was when I found out what it was, but it was finished in like 3 or 4 different casks, and it was still it's still on the shelf as a bourbon. Angel's Envy's in 1 cask. Whatever you think of them, they're in 1 cask. Maker's 46, it's one style. It's got French oak staves inserted. But when you start getting past 1 barrel, I mean that is where people will start taking advantage of it. And then you're going to get into Solera, and you're going to get into all these other things that distillers are going to try to do to take advantage of it, to stand out, and to use their marketing tools, to get a very clickbait headline that will run rampant on something like Men's Health or Gear Patrol or Forbes or wherever. And that's that. And I'm just telling you from a pure readability standpoint, that Jim Beam story is all over the place. It is all over the place. And what is drawing ire from Wade and a lot of other people is that fact that it continues to be called bourbon and being so different. And it's getting put in that same kind of innovation bucket as something like sweet mash, and no one cares about sweet mashing, but to me that's innovation for bourbon. To me, that is real innovation. The barrel finishes. I love the category. I love so much of the flavor of it, but we're getting out of hand. And I just know in rum, it's a shit show. They say it's a Solera system. There's not Solera.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that when we're talking about these finished casks, you all are going to know better than me, but I don't think there's a law or anything that states about how empty a certain cask must be, or how dry, or how aged it has to be until they. I mean, it could have 6 bottles of rum left in there, or port or sherry. It could have a few drops. There's nothing to say.
I mean, they rebuild their barrels and then they refill them too, right? And it's
how they recharge barrels.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, that's also what they do in rum, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that for like creating a whiskey. And another thing, Wade, is something that is of growth right now are blends. We're seeing a lot of blends of various types of bourbons. And, you know, and this is another area where people can slip in a little bit. If you don't see blend of straights, you know, what are you getting? So there's just a lot of things where there's this incredible, I feel like taking advantage of an eager populace to drink bourbon.
Well, you know, not to cut you off, but you know, it's funny, the whole time we're having this conversation. So I think it's almost like the very front line has already been lost a long time ago. And when I think of, we'll take like Wild Turkey Honey or Jim Beam Stag or anything like that. So when I talk to a lot of people who don't normally drink whiskey or bourbon, right? They'll say, oh, I had this really good bourbon. It was like cherry flavored, or I had this really good honey bourbon. And I'm always like, oh, and I start to explain it to them. And they're like, so do you drink that bourbon? And it just goes right over their head, right? Like the big distilleries, they won that battle a long time ago because in their minds, people aren't reading the label. They're already associated with the brand.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not even bourbon to begin with. It's just a blend of liqueur and bourbon, right? Like that, you know, they lost a long time ago.
Well, I think one thing interesting, you asked how these products can be compliant with the TTB. If you exceed 2.5% in these flavorings, you would technically have to call it a flavored whiskey. We don't know how much product is in these casks when they add it in. So actually, a lot of these products, if you actually measured them scientifically, they're probably exceeding that 2.5% level that's allowed by law to be added to it. So a lot of these products, especially when you start doing multiple casks, like Fred was talking about there, probably exceed the 2.5% and probably legally should be called flavored whiskeys.
Wait, I have a question. Is there a definition for cask? I mean, what's a cask? Does it have to be a certain defined barrel, or can it just be a wooden box? I mean, what's a cask?
It may change soon.
I mean, what's a cask now? Legally.
There is no legal definition for.
There you go.
Matter of fact, it's in the TTB regulations, they call it an oak container. They never even say barrel or cask. They call it oak containers. But
they're changing that.
Container finished whiskey.
I like that.
That's
category.
Jefferson Ocean.
So wait. I'm curious what you think of this. My belief is that if it stopped with like something as simple as like Angel's Envy, I don't think we're having this conversation.
No, we wouldn't.
I really respect what Angel's Envy has done because they never they always are always very transparent that, you know, they are bourbon finished, rye finished. And
I respect what they've done, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, bourbon's bourbon by itself. That's the way it should be. And I think finished stuff should be whiskey. That's just my opinion. Like, maybe I'm too old school because I grew up around it, but why are you hiding something, man? Just bourbon, you know?
Ryan,
like,
if you do that, we'd have to have like a whole spin-off show of called like Whiskey Finished in Port Cask Pursuit. You know, it's just too many words.
Well, then don't do it.
I just stole the URL. So
make good bourbon if you want bourbon on your label, you know?
But you know, as we look at what the future is, all right, so things are taking off and people are getting more influence, you know, throughout the consumer base, throughout the governance. And, you know, what does it look like in 10 years? We've seen what this looks like now after really a 10-year explosion of barrel finishes. If in 10 years this continues to escalate, it is going to be a shit show. And bourbon will be damaged if we do not hold the line on what is bourbon. And if it would have stopped with Angel's Envy, we wouldn't have a problem. If it would have stopped with that style, we wouldn't have a problem, but it didn't.
So I guess to kind of wrap this little segment up, if there is a call to action for bourbon consumers out there, Fred, Wade, like what is that action that somebody should take?
Well, my saying is, if it's not straight, you must debate.
I love it. He's been teeing that one up for a long time.
We got the next T-shirts coming up.
I'd add stick to bottled and bond, because that's not getting messed with. That's got the rules. Right. That's even more. That's straight plus, basically.
Well, shit, Brian. Then you're only going to have like 12 whiskeys in your bar.
You think bottled and bond is not getting messed with? My latest blog post talks about a bottled and bond product out there that's really crossing the line and got approved for the TB.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Damn, Kenny, I'm glad we reached out to Wade for Pursuit Spirits.
Let me close with one more thing on this topic, though. If people do like these finished whiskeys, I did a little experiment recently of trying to make my own at home by just adding a little port or a little sherry or a little Grand Marnier directly to the bottles and let them marry for 30 days. And then I had a panel of 11 blind tasters taste my version versus the commercial versions. And 2 out of the 3, my versions won easily, hand down. So you can make these products at home by starting with a good straight bourbon base.
I like it.
Couple of things. One, bottled and bond from a labeling perspective is starting to be, kind of messed with. Whistle Pig has a bottled and barn. So you see something like that's out there. So we've seen flavored whiskeys make it through the TTB as bottled and bond. So bottled and bond is absolutely, it can be, penetrated. And I I always go back to rum when we talk about this. Take a look at the state of affairs in rum. Rum is there's not many really genuine, pure producers left. So if you want bourbon to turn into that, then let's just, let this continue to go.
Buy more legend.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think we definitely came away with some learnings here. So anybody that's out there, make sure you're reading the labels, you know what you're buying, and you make sure you're looking at a lot of these guys' blog posts, because they go in depth and you'll be smarter because of it.
If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point-of-sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point-of-sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon.
But up next, I kind of want to talk about sort of the hype train that continues to build just around limited editions and everything like that. And that was because this past week in Kentucky, there was the last edition of the Kentucky Wildcats Maker's Mark limited edition release. And Maker's Mark does one of these every single year. It's usually in the Kentucky, Southern Indiana surrounding areas. They'll make somewhere between 12,000 to 20,000 of these bottles. And of course, there's just people lined up around the liquor barns and Total Wines and other stores and the Costco's. And I look at this and I try to view it from a retail standpoint. And I'm kind of curious and kind of look at you all. Is this the greatest scam that's ever been invented? Because it seems like retailers just make so much money over doing nothing. Like they can just sell a bottle like that in an instant.
Kentucky fans will buy anything.
Absolutely.
I think it goes more than just that. I think Makers has this down to a science. I mean, they've been not just Kentucky, but they've been doing this for years. It's like, all right, what sports team won? Let's roll out the red wax, or not red wax. Let's roll out the different colored wax. Let's slap it on there, and people go gaga for it, right? I mean,
And
kudos to
they did
Makers.
it for the RNC and the DNC conventions 2 years
Right.
ago.
Yeah,
Their own.
they did a longer than that. They've been doing that for a long time. The Rock the Vote bottles, for sure. Yeah.
Well,
Right. Jordan's right. It's an art.
There's a long tradition of that, right? You know, with all the decanters and everything from years past that the distilleries would put out. Maker's Mark seems to be the only one who continues to keep it a long living tradition. And yeah, I mean, you know, I guess if you see it on the shelf and you're like, I kind of like bourbon and there's my sports team on there. Okay, I'll buy it. You know, it's
Well, but I think so. You bring up a good point, Blake. But those decanters were when bourbon really wasn't selling, so people are going more for the
why are they
decanters and the bourbon, right? Makers. I mean, people are buying bourbon left and right now, but they're still rocking it out. But people love it. I mean, you know, and it's
but
not
you
like
think about like the Justify bottles; those things just sell out automatically.
Yep.
Where now they have the market cornered because if Buffalo Trace comes out with a Kentucky Wildcats bottle, everyone's like, hold on a second, somebody else. But, you know, everybody just expects it of Makers. So,
but the biggest kind of newbie question that I see is that most of these newbies out there think these are special editions, that there's some kind of special bourbon in the glass.
I've always they source them from Stitzel Weller.
Wait.
Told.
It's all 12-year-old Maker's Mark. Everybody.
No, that's the over oaked Maker's Mark. You know, you go through the door. This is what over oak tastes like. I'm like, actually, that's pretty good. I kind of like it at 10 years. Could you release this?
I'll take one.
I was one of those suckers and kept buying them for a while, and then I realized that it's the same juice, and so I just started using them as mixers, like hand them at bars. Like, here you go.
But I think certain brands, right? So you got Makers, but Woodford does it with their Derby bottle, right? Yeah. People go gaga for that. I think each brand has their niche, and they. I don't want to say they exploit it.
Who was it? Secretariat that for?
Yep.
Or
Oh yeah, that was
that was actually limited, like super limited.
that was
good.
that Secretary one, Penny Chenery, the owner of Secretary, picked it out. That was one of the coolest experiences of my career. Was being with her when she picked that bottle.
That's cool.
But these things are, you know, we can bitch about a lot of different things, but this is a little bit to me of the spirit of just having some fun. You know, it is what it is. They've been doing it for a long time. It brings in outsiders interested into to the category. It gets new fan bases excited. I like it. Most people don't open the bottles, you know, and
they're impossible to open. You get all those layers of wax on there. The last one I tried to open was the Astros World Series bottle. I had to take a blowtorch to it.
I'm pretty sure somebody on here wanted a Beam Cubs bottle when it came out. Just for the collectability, right? Yeah, there you go, right? I mean, there you go.
I've worked hard to get it.
I mean, they could put just colored water in there, and no one would know the difference because
I'll never know. Although
no one opens these things.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like, you know, we talked about it on a community roundtable in the past of having a signed bottle. You're like, well, do I really want to open up a bottle that's been signed? It's like, nah, you know, I'll just open up something else. So kind of one of those things just going to sit on the shelf. It's going to be a cool decoration.
I open my signed bottles, so
do you?
I do, yeah.
You really are a rare bird.
They
taste better.
There we go.
He just set me up so well for that one. I couldn't resist.
That's a funny pitch right there.
It really is.
So after tonight, which bottle will they be making? After the national championship,
UVA.
Texas Tech bottle. Wow.
Who knows?
It's
We'll
just
find out.
marketing. It's just marketing, though. I mean, it's not. I mean, none of the enthusiasts are really being enticed by these. It's more for the mass public that enjoys makers and beam, and it's just. I don't see anything wrong with it personally. I think it's a smart move on their part. Makers has always had great marketing. That's kind of their thing, Right. Cheers to them for doing it.
They invented
good for them. Good for Kentucky.
Yeah.
Makers has a really big collector scene as well, right? I mean, there's guys who just have, Brian and there's another guy, but they have hundreds of these bottles. They buy every single one, so they got to feed the audience as well, right. Which is pretty cool. So almost spent $200 on a Jaguars Maker's Mark bottle one time from the AFC. I don't even know what they did it for. It wasn't the AFC Championship, but
you did that because you were a sports fan.
Yeah,
he did
Bourbon fan. He did that back when he was playing.
Yeah, I was on the team, and the Mark Brunell threw me a touchdown pass.
Silhouette was on the bottle.
Then I'm like, hold on, am I really about to pay $200 for Maker's Mark?
All right, so I want to kind of just dovetail this into the last topic tonight, and this is again going to be more across on the retail side because I kind of pitched that one as kind of a buildup because I look at it in a way that it's going to sell no matter what. It's limited, blah blah blah. Even if it's not limited with 20,000 bottles in one state, and you're only targeting a sports team, it's still going to sell out no matter what. But then we start looking at some things when it comes to something we all love and talk about, which is barrel picks and barrel selections. And there's some retailers out there that they don't care about what's inside the bottle. They will get a barrel sample or they'll get a phone call and they say, hey, we've got 3 barrels. We've got a 9-year, 9.5 year, and a 10-year. They go, we'll take the 10-year. It doesn't matter. Like we'll take it because it's age and that's what sells. So what do you all kind of think of this? Like, do you think that in this sort of this today's market that, age is going to sell a product. It doesn't matter what it tastes like or anything like that. You got a Four Roses that's 10 and a half years old. It's going to sell. No problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it just does, or sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, no. Well, I won't say where we were and who this was for, but when Kenny and I were in a barrel pick recently, the master distiller, we went through 10 barrels and he picked one and he goes, well, this is going to such and such store. And we're like, that one sucks or something. And he was like, well, they won't care. Something like along those lines. And so it's like, just always make sure where you're buying stuff, who's picking the barrels, because a lot of times they're out there and they're just like, it's going to who? They're not here. All right, send them this one, so that's my just take on it.
Well, I think I forget who it was, but they were talking about, the difference between group picks and store picks is a pretty big thing, or just trusting the store that's picking it. We had that experience when we did our BCR Buffalo Trace pick. There were a couple barrels in there. We're like, this just isn't very good. And we were like, what happens to these barrels? And it was like, well, somebody's going to eventually get these. And it's just the store who says, just give me whatever. Yeah. It's going to sell out no matter what. So it's another one of those things where it gets like hyped up. Oh, you got to get store picks. And then all of a sudden just garbage starts flowing into store picks as well. Now it's like, okay, you got to trust who's actually picking these, because otherwise you're going to end up with something that's worse than just what you would find on the shelf.
Yeah, people are falling into the age trap, They're falling for something with a big age on it. I'll be honest with you, like with Knob Creek picks, the 13, 14-year picks are just not my thing. I like them more around the 9-year mark from the ones I've tasted. But maybe that's just a personal preference. But like with Russell's Reserve, I recently had a pick from Justin's House of Bourbon, and I was like, this is amazing. The finish was a little short, but the nose and the palate was amazing. And I found out it was just barely cracking 8 years. And I was like, really? And it was from Camp Nelson F, which from my experience has been very spicy, with a lot of dry spice and heat. And this one was real fruity. It was very kind of almost like Four Roses, like OBSO or something. And I was like, this is just incredible. And he was like, yeah, man, it was barely 8 years. I was worried you wouldn't like it. And I'm like, I love this thing. And so you can't really go, I didn't know what the age was going into it. And you can't just assume that because it's got double digits that it's going to be good. That is not true. There are plenty of 8-9 year picks out there of various, Four Roses, Jim Beam, whatever, that are excellent. So don't go by age, but a lot of people fall for the age trap. 14-year Knob Creek, got to get it now. It's like, I don't know, you might want to taste it first,
Yeah,
people fall for
I
the.
totally agree. Just trust who's doing the picks.
Yeah,
they fall for the age, and they also fall for the proof a lot too, right? So you'll see the same thing. It's like, oh, it's high proof. I'll get the highest proof.
Or short barrel. Oh, short barrel, got to jump
exactly.
on it.
Right. So it goes right back to what Brian said, what we're all talking about. You got to know the people picking it, right? And find a flavor profile of somebody else that has a similar taste as you do, and just trust them.
Yeah, so Elixir Spirits here commented in the chat and said, it happens quite often. He had an 8-year, 11-month OESK he took delivery on over a 12-year OBSF. However, the OESK took 1.5 years to sell versus the 12-year, which only took 6 months. So, yeah, I think it really boils down to people have this idea of age statements when they go in and they don't really care. He even told customers that the OESK tasted better too. So that kind of just goes, yeah, people still bought it. And I think this is sort of the thing that we're starting to see, and what I'm starting to see with some of the retailers is that they don't care about going and tasting it. They're just like, sure, just get the highest age, put it in a bottle, it's going to sell no matter what.
You don't see age statements on every other thing, so you're like, I think people get excited when they see like a higher age on something, just because your age statements are gone now. So that might be why.
Well, I think a little bit of this too, you're starting to see, this is, we're talking about this, but there's another coin to this, is that the distillers are going to the distributors and saying, if you guys don't take this barrel, you're sending us a clear message. These retailers are not necessarily doing this by choice. I mean, yes, they are selling it, but a lot of the bigger ones, they're trying to keep that. They're trying to keep their allocations, and their guys still go in there and get the sweet honey barrels, but they do take on a load that that maybe Old Forester doesn't want, or Knob Creek doesn't want. Doesn't have like a group coming in and selecting them. So it's not necessarily always the retailer's best interest to say no to these larger distillers who are dictating who is getting barrels right now.
Right.
Yep. Everybody's on the chopping block, so you got to just take what you can get.
I know a large retailer here in Houston that they like to have store picks, but not with their particular name on it. So they want some kind of designation, some kind of sticker on the bottle that it was a private barrel pick. But in case it's bad, they don't really want to have their name on the bottle.
I like it.
Two-edged sword, because then if people love it, you don't even get to claim it as the greatest thing ever.
Yep.
That's when you have some side stickers. Just start putting them on after the fact.
Of course, I go around to stores and randomly throw little stickers on them that looks like a private barrel pick.
just to help them run through inventory faster.
Yeah.
A bunch of unicorn stickers, this is the unicorn.
That's probably the next good prank that you could probably pull next for April Fools. Just go into Total Wine and just start putting stickers on everything and just put a few pictures out there and just watch people start running. Who knows?
Wait till it gets sold on DSM.
I bet the retailers would actually like that, because it would get more like social media traction for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, press is good press.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal. So that's going to help. That's going to wrap it up for tonight's episode. I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us, whether you're live watching us through the chat. And then also thank you to everybody here on the panel that joined us. So Ryan, Fred, thank you again. And I kind of want to go around the horn one more time to let people give an opportunity to say where you blog and kind of start closing it out. So Blake, we'll start with you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm Blake from bourboner.com. Always great to be on here. Good to be back in the full aspect and not just a quick drop in. So you can find me Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, BOURBONR. Also check out sealbox.com. That's SEELBACHS. We specialize in craft spirits. So check it out. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Get all your bourbon delivered right to your door. Whether it's finished in a cask or not, it still comes to your door.
All kinds of bourbon. They do all kinds.
We can rum. We can, whatever you want. You take your pick. No, a lot of good stuff. New Riff just barrel landed last week, so that was a big one. But it's already gone, so you're too late. You can get some of the other New Riff stuff if you'd like.
Good deal. Brian, go ahead and go next.
All right, thanks for having me on again. I'm Brian with Sippin' Corn, and you can find me at sippincorn.com and bourbonjustice.com. Check it out on Amazon and through Potomac's website.
Good deal. Jordan, you're up next, buddy.
Sure. This is Jordan, one of the three guys from Breaking Bourbon. You can find us on social media at Breaking Bourbon along with Patreon. Visit the site for our daily updates to our release calendar along with our in-depth reviews.
Good deal. And we'll just keep going in order we had before. So, Wade, you're up next.
Yes, my blog is tater-talk.com. Or for the folks that are listening in Texas, they might want to check out texaswhiskey.org.
There we go. Big things happening in Texas.
All right, always big things.
And David, go ahead.
All right. Well, if you want to read some Wild Turkey reviews, go to rarebird101.com. You can find me on Instagram at rarebird101. You can find me on Twitter at rbird101. And, of course, I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/rarebird101. And I have a Kickstarter, as you've probably heard, about a book I've written about wild turkey. And I want to thank all my Patreon supporters and the people that have pledged on Kickstarter and all my followers and readers. And last but certainly not least, thank you, Fred. Thank you for talking with me and guiding me through this process and being so supportive. I appreciate it, and I hope that everyone recognizes that, as passionate as I am about wild turkey, Fred is passionate about bourbon. So,
thank you.
Man, I was about to say, it's a good thing you were talking about Fred there, because I was about to pull like a Bob Barker, like the wheels getting ready to stop spinning. Like, you need to go and pay attention to what your numbers getting ready to come up.
Trying hard for that Bourbon Plus spot.
The discount. I got to get that discount now. You have private jet ads in there.
You would be selling.
We do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so make sure you're following, of course, Bourbon Pursuit on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You're also following Fred Minnick at all those different channels and supporting, of course, Bourbon Plus there as well. Ryan, go ahead and close it out for us, buddy.
Ooh, Bourbon Plus. No, thanks, guys, for joining us as always. This is the shortest one ever. I guess there's something going on tonight or something. Appreciate everyone. I mean, super excited for the Rare Bird Dave Jennings book. I'm super pumped. So please support that, because I think it's going to be a great addition to anyone's bourbon library. But anyways, thanks, everyone. I guess go Cavs. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like that. So I don't know. Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Well, with that, thank you, everybody, and we see you all next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.